time to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Hello there, Nick. So tell us what you're looking at this morning.
Hey, so I think big news today may be current acting Comptroller Michael Hsu, the new head of the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the federal bank regulator everyone's been paying attention to for the last year. He held a press conference yesterday and addressed some of the crypto concerns that folks in the industry have raised since he announced a review of all of his predecessor's actions. In particular, he said that he's instructed his staff to review everything around digital asset guidance. So this includes the interpretive letters and the conditional bank charters that were issued in the last administration under former acting controller Brian Brooks. And he wouldn't rule out any possible action. He said, quote, everything's on the table, when it comes to how they're assessing that. But he did say he told his staff to, also, quote, be cognizant of, decisions already made. So not a lot of clarity in how they're approaching it, but we do know that bank charters issued, or trust charters issued to Anchorage, Protego, and Paxos are being reviewed. And this is kind of the first hint he's given at how that might proceed.
Nick, what's your sense here? Because everything includes, like a lot of things, right? So it's a pretty broad statement. I mean, do you see this as positive, as negative, as neutral? He just said he's looking at everything around digital currency. Like, how do you interpret that?
Yeah, I think the things to keep in mind here are, the conditional trust charters have been issued, and my sense from speaking to folks both inside and not within the industry is that revoking a conditional trust charter would be a little bit complicated. So if the OCC chooses to go that route, they'd have to come up with an explanation why, and it would have to satisfy a number of questions, basically. There is definitely a lot of pressure to revoke those. However, we've seen in the last year, we've seen the Senate ask, at the time, Brian Brooks to either slow down his work with digital asset companies and guidance, or to basically focus on other things. Since Mr. Hsu took over, we've seen lawmakers, including Senate Banking Chairman Sherrod Brown, ask him to reassess whether or not these charters are something that should be issued. So there's definitely a lot of pressure to revoke, but I think we're probably gonna, if we see something, and he said we'll see something by the summer, I think it's gonna have it'll have whatever we end up with, a lot of kind of explanation as to like how the current administration is viewing digital asset companies and the charters issued.
Do you suppose that having Brooks approve all these things right before he left it gives Hsu kind of a way out from that pressure from mostly, I believe it's mostly Democratic lawmakers in Congress who the same party as the president, but it sort of gives him an out by saying, oh, well, it was there before, can't do much. I mean, is that kind of like what that's hinting at?
So the interesting thing is Anchorage was given its conditional trust charter before Brian Brooks stepped down. Protego and Paxos both received their trust charters afterwards. So this is the OCC staff under, at the time, former acting comptroller Blake Paulson, who was a longtime OCC staffer, is how those were issued. So I don't think he can point to that and say, all this happened under the previous administration. All three of them happened in 2021. Two of them happened after Brian Brooks stepped down. So I think that is definitely a factor worth considering. It's also worth noting, some of these staffers, the longtime staffers, including former, I think it was senior counsel, who was responsible for a lot of digital asset guidance, have since left the agency or are planning to leave the agency.